Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Here's a quote before this podcast. Our boundless energy may be funneled through ourself, and ourself needs no label. It just is. Labels limit. Labels limit. 30 days of thought. Excerpt number 2. To label is to limit. Limitations are the non-physical chains of mediocrity with scarcity bias for lack of the antiquated, instinctual architecture of an imperfect, nonlinear evolution of self. How have we arrived in this place of existence? We are not sure, but our personal power knows no bounds. We may argue a myriad of perspectives on the topic. However, only the truth that our ability to thwart our intentions with limiting beliefs is a blessed curse. I say blessed because it comes with untold power and even greater responsibility. Our boundless energy may be funneled through ourself, and ourself needs no label. It just is. I chose the word curse because the potential of being so infinite is just that, infinite. As we evolve into our true self, we want answers, and although we may never receive them, this is our world. This is purgatory. Regardless of the chosen view, labels will limit you. As water fills a jar, any lid that may be placed on top will cut off the expansive overflow of the water. We are water. Our mass is water. Water is life. We are life. Energy is life. Therefore, to label us is to place metaphorical lids on our state of being. All great leaps of consciousness and followed manifestation of physical material advancement are catapulted into existence by organisms who were one with self. Therefore, they had no lid. Their alignment with self and their personal power is infused into the culture around them as clues necessary to make this assertion. Labels limit as specialization kills curiosity. Curiosity breeds intelligence, and intelligence is the bridge from the unknown to the known, and instinct to spirit. We are but non-physical energy, temporarily composed of physical construct. Our labels limit our advancement and advancement in life. Don't take my observation for granted. Study the world around you, the stars, the sky, and you will find you're opening your eyes to beauty. Words may not describe, only limit. When we focus on the sound, we come to find this truth self-evident. Labels limit. Here are my notes. Business context. If I'm in a group of people, each one of us has a title, a description of the roles or responsibilities that we have come to bear responsibility for by our choice and the culture's choice. And these descriptions infer knowledge, content, they infer tenure, experience, they infer the likelihood of us as individuals being able to solve problems, what types of problems. So the idea behind labels limit in a business context is, how do we maintain openness when the fruits of our labor undermine it. Example, we all get together, we as in a group of people, towards towards an outcome, towards a vision that's been articulated, that's been worked through amongst the group and agreed to. And so we all work towards that vision by giving up things that we want to do in the short term for what we want most in the long term, which would be the outcome, uh, which would be the outcomes of that vision. So to get to the outcomes of that vision, we had to give up things we wanted now or what we want later. And those sacrifices shaped us and molded us and developed us as a group. The average, like per capita character of each individual amongst the group has improved from the process of envisioning, of articulating, of problem solving before, during, and up to the moment of outcome. And now, once the outcome has occurred, what's next question mark? The what's next question mark is a new call to gathering and to following that same process. The difference is the prior result is now something else we've got to contend with. And that form of productivity, which came before the outcome, has now catapulted us into reacting to the outcome as we have to proact to the new activity. How we talk, how we communicate, how we organize and form ourselves around the behaviors necessary to succeed will increase or decrease our likelihood to be successful as a group, as well as individuals on our own journeys of development and evolution and accumulated positive outcomes as individuals. So labels limit is about being aware of I wrote this down. What is true can create falsehood as it undermines truer truth or its unraveling. We experience this world together through ourselves as part of the world as a whole. So in a business context, if we're working together with a team, we each have our role. Uh, that does not mean that the intuition, the the intuition, the general insight, the general accumulation of experience and know-how, viewpoint, opinion of all of those in the group does not have value in a context that they may be perceived to not have that value in. Essentially, everybody's voice matters. So number one is more openness. We recognize that labels limit. Descriptions are necessary. At the same time, they can undermine forward momentum, forward progress. There's a lot of ways that one can interpret this excerpt labels limit. There's like, which degree do you want to have a conversation around? Uh, Philosophically or theologically or um, what have you. In a business context, when it comes to conversating, communicating with a group, more openness. We recognize that labels limit, that everyone in the room may have recognized something, may see something, may have value to bring with their thoughts and their words. It will increase the likeliness of us together solving the problems that we have to solve strategically, with tact. So more openness leads to more dialogue. More dialogue leads to more content. More content leads to more context. So it's more openness amongst the group. And how do we create openness amongst the group? When success undermines openness. Truth taken too dogmatically, too literally, too infinitely becomes a falsehood. We have to constantly be innovating and re-engineering and rethinking what's worked in the past together. Uh, I was watching the recently the Lex Friedman and Jeff Bezos interview. It was very powerful, where Jeff was saying we're not a truth-seeking species, we're a social species. In fact, the person amongst the group that will tell it exactly like they see it, they may be the one clobbered over the head, thousands of years ago. We're a social group. We much rather not embrace the truth, not talk about the ugly things that make us uncomfortable. We'd rather stray away from those. Gosh, I've seen that in every corporate setting that I've ever engaged with, chatted with. Uh, in a business sense, you get a group of people together. Everyone's labels are on the line. Everyone's titles, everyone's recognition, everyone's prestige, everyone's former successes, everyone's everyone's attachment attachments are in the way of the outcomes that will argue the future attachments that we all weigh so that will weigh so heavily on. We want the recognition, we want the achievement, we want the success. To actually get it, we have to be able to let go of it. Remember who we actually are as who we are as no better or worse fundamentally in our ability in our in in how we behave with one another, how we come to the truth with one another, how we communicate with one another. So number one was more openness leads to more dialogue. The openness, there's some philosophical, psychophilosophical relationship there. That's the purpose of Labels Limit, is to remind myself how fact can undermine the new fact, the next level to things, to not be closed as a result of former openness. So, because more openness may lead to more dialogue, and I'm going to ask that next question if I'm in a position of authority, especially. Jeff also talked about that in this podcast about speaking last, about the awareness that speaking first could and likely would influence the thoughts of all of the subordinates, those at a lesser degree of power. So why not? He didn't mention this part, but I'm going to say this. Why not lean in and ask everyone what they think as deeply as one can about the general topics at hand, then share the vision of a possibility, and now submit oneself to the inquiry and the conflicts, the criticisms of that vision shared. That is, there's a skill, there's a science, there's an art to what I just said, and Labels Limit is part of the journey of being in a position to um, act upon the process of management to increase the success of the organization. You could take, we could go on and on about life and I know the different facets of life of how that same or similar conversation can go about. But in the business context, let's say a team meeting or a gathering, we want more openness, more dialogue, more content of each person sharing, give more context of what the actual problems are. There's levels of problems, and we can't even see all the problems. So, that's where questions come in because they can lead to new insights, to ask better, more qualitative questions, to come to even more clarity of what could really be going on at the root of things, where we're just talking right here. I'm putting my hands low if you're listening to this, versus getting to the highest height of what's really going wrong. So more openness, more dialogue leads to more content, more context. Number two, so that was number one, right? One leads to A, which is more dialogue. A1 is more content from dialogue. B1 is context. The number two is more energy. There's more energy, the more of all of the above is expressed. There's more energy. If I'm open to a dialogue and more content is coming through me, I'm synthesizing it, then there's more energy. It's not like there's a block between me and my counterpart. If I have 100 units of energy, whatever, if I'm blocked, I'm not gaining their energy. Their energy is just kind of in the middle between us. And the more energy they're giving, the more separate we are. Now, just straight up agreement doesn't get me more energy because I could fundamentally disagree with everything someone else is saying. That it's the process of engagement and re-engagement with my counterpart's energy that will take me from 100 to 200 or 100 to 1,000 versus 100 to negative 100 or 100 just staying at 100. There's more energy when more people in the room are sharing their thoughts, their feelings, their uh, their value, their lived experience. There's more energy involved. Ultimately, based on the quality of that dialogue, will have more value. So two is energy. A is each each party has energy prior and builds energy from how the interaction occurs. So this is where the how the interaction occurs. How we communicate with one another increases or decreases constructive energy versus deconstructive energy. Number three is more meaning. More meaning. The the meaning is what comes before the excitement for that gathering, where we're going to become more aware of what we didn't know because we addressed what we knew we didn't know. We'll become more aware together what we didn't know from endeavoring in what we know we don't know together. That's the value of having different people in a room with different labels, different roles, responsibilities, behavioral tendencies, personalities, temperaments. We're all different. Another thing interesting, and it's weighing on this talk is on me. Jeff was saying this too to Lex Friedman, how yeah, something there's 1,000 ways to be smart. He looks for what he looks for the smart in people, for their genius essentially, for what's special in them. And you bring someone to a table. I was reading Adi Zez this morning, or listening to Adi Zez this morning, the executive, the book is about the executive, and talking about how each person, there's no one person that could do all jobs, one manager that could do all positions. It's the process of management, of bringing other people together that serve different purposes in their behavior that creates the collective outcome of the collective success. And it's essentially person A, B, C, and D, and E. We need them all bringing their genius to the table. And there's a science and an art to how to go about doing that, how to actually hold a collaborative team meeting that has meaning, that uh, that has a perfect amount of novelty, fun, fear, and disagreement in conflict, because there's conflicts of vision when we all know when we have the opportunity to speak freely. Disagreements are going to occur, but now am I taking it so deeply, so dogmatically, so seriously that I'm actually negating the value that the group has of coming together, right? If I'm taking my title, my role, my pride is too attached to my position in the business, then I'm going to undermine the results, because the results are on the other side of that mastermind alliance, of that dialogue, of the content, of the context. So number three, so it's number one was more openness, leads to more dialogue, leads to more content, leads to more context. Number two is more energy. There's more energy exchanged in the group when I recognize that labels limit. They're part of life and not all. Each party has energy prior and builds energy from how the interaction occurs. Number three is more meaning. As we go through the problems of the business's growth, we develop meaningful relationships, relationships full of meaning, meaning as a byproduct of how we handle conflict with one another, with and through one another as we handle the conflicts of life. Business is about solving problems. A business is bringing products and service to market for consumers. We're the consumers. We're all consumers. We're laboring with our bodies, with our minds, with our spirit revealed in how we relate with one another to bring the world to ourselves, to bring value, to bring um, um, products and services to ourselves so that we can live our lives. And we all know what it's like to work in a place that there is we don't have a meaning to it. There's no substance. We're not we don't feel like we're a part of something. What we're doing really has significance over anyone outside of maybe whatever we're being compensated for to fulfill whatever personal desires that we have. Well, meaning is when the personal desires that we have in our personal lives and our business lives are aligned. They supplement each other. They're not separate islands. They're integrated in a way that the work that we do, that we get to do, that we are part of, we feel as though it adds richness to our life. It doesn't separate us from our life. There, we go in tandem, and that can absolutely be curated in a company with all people, all constituents. So meaning and how we gather and how we communicate and how we problem solve together increases or decreases the likelihood of meaning to be of a meaningful workplace of the individual and ownership included. Right? Without constant evolution and learning how to lead, people in positions of power do not have meaning. They have not only no meaning, they have nihilism with the ability to live all temporary desires out because you have the access to capital, you have the access to labor, you have the access to everything to essentially um, mask all imperfection with perceived perfection. You got people willing to do anything for you, people willing to you get more and more things given to you, fans, people like worshiping at varying degrees. When you're in power, it's just as important to have open it's a necessity argument if you're going to keep the position. It'd be a coup over the organization without that. So meaning is number three. That's where we go to number four. It compounds. So, more openness leads to more energy, leads to more meaning, which leads to more dialogue. That's that idea of the speed of trust. See, it's how do we actually create trust in an organization? I'm going to talk lightly on that as we close the labels limit here today. It'll be a recurring theme because culture matters. Where my um, focus is of understanding is attempting to figure out the how does culture manifest itself, and how do we curate environments where home and business life are integrated and there is meaning in the work and there is success and there is innovation despite the inherent unraveling of all of what I just said as a consequence of success. How do we increase the feedback loops in relation to the closedness of the feedback loops that occur because of the prior openness of the feedback loops? How do we actually create a curate culture? So we'll be talking plenty on that. But number four is more dialogue, increases innovation, labor, action, and exponentially. So more dialogue, and dialogue. It's interesting. The word is explicit. The word or actions are implicit words. I could say I'm going to do something. Um, you'll believe me if we have a relationship at a higher or lower likelihood based on observing me in the past with what I did before. So actions are implicit word, and word is explicit. Implicit my it's like implicit potential for outcome is action. Explicit potential for outcome is word. And when they're in when they are aligned, you trust the outcome of my word, the outcome of my behavior. It's a lower likelihood that there's going to be failure as a consequence. Um, that's an important. So I wrote these four things down. How do we actually build trust? One, we embody it. Two, we enable others to embody it. Three, we cut cancer out. And four, we welcome redemption. So number one, we embody it. We do what we say we're going to do, or we. It's interesting. I'm trying to figure this out now, but ultimately, if you think about the level of sacrifice necessary in a position of power to engage the people, it's going to come with sacrifice. It's going to come with time served. If I'm the in the position of ownership, I'm working for the institution. I'm working for the vision. I'm working with the people to do all of those things. No, to do all of those things is going to take sacrifice for what I want to do and what I may be able to more likely do now that I have power. I have control, I have influence, and I have authority. Control is in I get to say, I get to do what I want to do. Influence, people are going to side with me and help me lie to myself. Um, Authority, people may not, yeah, the mixture of authority and influence, people may not call me out. That's what this whole point, on what they think or they feel or they see, because there's a dynamic there where their love could lead them to even not say what they really think about me because of how close they are with me. That naturally occurs. So, and how if I'm in a highest position of power, how I work will reveal my values and set a tone implicitly of the values of the organization, of the embodiment. How do we actually build trust? We have to embody it. We have to embody trust. How do we know if we trustworthy? Are we're going to know that proportional to our ability to listen, which is going to be dependent upon a whole bunch of factors I'm trying to figure out generally. But it's like who's around us? Have we set ourselves up to have people that are in positions where they're not incentivized to lie to us? They're incentivized to speak the truth. But we have to embody it. We can unpack that in another excerpt as we go along here. Number two, enable others to embody it, and that has a connection with how well we embody trust. If we're saying what to do and we're doing what to say or what we say, that's more to take huge leap of intellect to figure out. That's better than just saying what to do and not doing what one says. The latter is like a force of power, and the other is something very different. It's inspiring versus enforcing. So we enable others to embody it by how we actually embody trust. And I think there's a component here of compassion, forgiveness, how we communicate with our people increases or decreases their likelihood to embody it. Number three, and those future conversations we'll have around it. We cut cancer out. This is a paradox of tolerance. The more Karl Popper, the more tolerant we are to intolerance, intolerance rises up, destroys us in itself. Part of the being in power is to make the tough decisions. That's why I think how people are asked to leave a culture? Well, it does a couple things. One, it reveals the values of the culture, how people are asked to leave. Because someone that's unwilling to change, and this is the thing, we could be perceived that they're unwilling to change, but we actually may not be strong, not be qualitative enough to change them, to evolve them, to inspire them to adapt. We get to write the narrative because we won the war. We've fired them, so we get to paint the story of who they were. But we may have actually let them down, and it's not 100% them, 0% us. It's somewhere, or 100% us, 0% them. There's some kind of, excuse me, look, too much protein bar or something like that. There's a relationship there where it's not 100% them, a zero us, a zero, 100% us, zero them. There's some percentage mixture. So how we even do it? Do we avoid it and never do it? Because that's avoiding conflict manifests more conflict. How we do it is going to have a relationship of what state that they're in, which that's going to have a big impact. It's going to have a big impact on them. It's also going to have impact on the institution because we live in a socially integrated world that's more and more integrated through internet and social platforms. That, I mean, there's going to be a real cost to letting someone go in a deconstructive way in the future, if not now, that you're dealing with. And good. It's a call to responsibility. There's value there. There's accountability there. So there's that. There's also, what can we learn from it? The speed by which it happens and how it happens matters, but it's going to have to happen because it's an unreconcilable paradox of tolerance. Is that the more tolerant we are to intolerance, it will rise up, destroy us in itself. And we've got now, there's this whole how we dialogue with what we perceive as intolerance. We've spent thousands of hours studying in the field of culture matters. And that's something that I consider myself expert in the sense that still on the path to unlearning and learning anew, but feel very strongly of how to increase the likelihood of quality dialogue with people to increase the likelihood of them being more aware and being more effective. And that's done through the learnings and development of the leadership. But that's number three, how we cut cancer out. Number four is the redeeming quality. Do we welcome back? Like, are we the type of person that, because it may be that someone leaves and then they come back. If they're not permitted to come back, that says a lot about the institution's values. It's, oh, they're not allowed back. That sounds a bit culty. Well, yeah, it's called a closed society. If someone goes to prison, serves their time, and now that there's one culture that say they're never redeemable, and there's another culture that say, oh well, who are they today? How did they act today? What are the behaviors today? It's a completely different paradigm of the one that says they're done, they're never allowed back, and the one that says, yeah, they're allowed back. And the question becomes, which culture is more effective? Um, well, we'll be figuring that out along as we go through 30 days of thought, and as we continue interviewing all of these different people on the show that I have the blessing to be able to do for you. And right currently, I think that the unwillingness to forgive infers some level of closeness on the non on the of the individual institution unwilling to forgive, and that could actually be attached to a closeness, to a negativity, to an inability to embrace conflicts and lead. And so I think they're connected, and I'm attempting to figure that out as we go and as we work in the field. But those are four ways to actually build trust. We embody it, we enable others to embody it by how we embody it and how we communicate and how we actually labor and build, and we cut it out. How we cut it out matter will reveal us and have consequences, and how we welcome people back for the first time, for the fourth, how we forgive. Those are some thoughts on Labels Limit. Took it in more of a business direction, and I'm excited to see your videos and your thoughts on Labels Limit in whatever context you want to describe it in. Put out your video, put out your podcast. Remember to read to think. Purpose is to read Labels Limit, to think your own thoughts, to question, contradict, whatever you would like, however you'd like to express yourself. Write your thoughts in the book and share them on your Facebook, your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your TikTok, your podcast. Start a podcast, I would recommend. It's not easy. It's uncomfortable, and I want to procrastinate every time I do it. And I wrote the original ones, but this process of reading, writing again, filming the video is it's more than a book. It's a process, it's a program, and it's a methodology to become more aware and clear and grow. Just it's a development of personal growth is the 30 days of thought. And I'm doing it once again, and it's fun and scary. So I'll see you next time on 30 Days of Thought on the Culture Matters podcast.